When idiots are engaged in a cover-up, they often reveal more than they conceal, and that has been the story of Donald Trump's presidency, whether it be his crimes in corruption, his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, or his crumbling health. The idiots in Trump's administration have failed to cover up, and especially on his health, and especially Carolyn Leavitt, who has screwed Donald Trump as a court is about to get access and be able to release his medical records. This is a code red for Donald Trump. It is chaos in the White House. And oh boy, I can't wait to get into it all on top of an interview with a young governor who is calling out Donald Trump. We're going to get into that. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video. And if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work, especially calling out Donald Trump's health. Now, before we get into this court, before we get into how Trump has been screwed by Carolyn Leavitt, I want to start with the reporting that kicked off the media's actual attention being paid to Donald Trump's health. Is broken down by Lawrence O'Donnell right here.
He is in sharp mental and physical decline. And we now have a number for it. 39%. That is the measure of Donald Trump's physical decline since his first time in the White House. 39%. In an article published tonight by the New York Times, Katie Rogers and Dylan Friedman report under the headline, "Shorter Days, Signs of Fatigue, Trump Faces Realities of Aging in Office." The Times has documented the newly abbreviated schedule for the struggling 79-year-old man. Quote, in 2017, the first year of his first term, Mr. Trump's scheduled events started at 10:31 a.m. on average. By contrast, Mr. Trump in his second term has started scheduled events in the afternoon on average at 12:08 p.m. His events end on average at around the same time as they did during the first year of his term, shortly after 5 p.m. The number of Mr. Trump's total official appearances has decreased by 39%. 39% less Donald Trump. That's what we're getting now. Donald Trump was the laziest president we had ever seen in his first term. He is now 39% lazier. And he is now apparently struggling with a 5-hour workday. And of course, none of us have seen him do anything that in any way meets the definition of work during those 5 hours. The Times reports Mr. Trump appeared to doze off during an event in the Oval Office. And so we are now covering the physical decline and fall of Donald Trump. Last night, I mentioned Donald Trump's age a couple of times when I pointed out that you can see the 79-year-old man who gets very little sleep bewildered about how he is losing his grip on the Republican Party. And there are people who are in full-blown dementia in their early 60s. We all age differently, and Donald Trump is aging just fine for someone who should be watching TV all day and playing golf occasionally, but he's aging terribly for a president. But Donald Trump at his best age would have been the stupidest president and most incompetent president in history and the most corrupt. A younger Donald Trump is not a better Donald Trump.
There are very few journalists who have given the proper attention to Donald Trump's deteriorating health in the mainstream media, and Lawrence O'Donnell is certainly one of them. He has talked constantly about the slurring, the wandering, the cognitive state that we can all observe by hearing Donald Trump talk every single day and being disturbed by it, because it is disturbing. And it is especially so when the White House continues to deny. It's almost as if they want to bring attention with how obvious and ridiculous their lies are, like Carolyn Leavitt continuing to peddle this story.
Go ahead. Thank you. The president's been spotted out and about a number of times with bandages on his hands. Could you please explain what that is about? Secondly, he noted on Truth Social the other day that he had aced 3 cognitive tests. Could you please clarify when those tests took place?
I can do that at a later date. I obviously don't have that in front of me. The president has spoken about that quite extensively throughout the years. As for the bandages on the hand, we've also given you an explanation for that in the past. The president is literally constantly shaking hands. The Oval Office is like Grand Central Terminal. He is meeting with more people than any of you even know about on a daily basis. He's also on a daily aspirin regimen, which is something his physical exam examinations has said in the past as well, which can contribute to that bruising that you see.
I have shaken plenty of hands with plenty of people who just really get after it. You know those people who like want to hurt you when they like, wait, don't be that person who like does like the hardest handshake possible. I've shaken plenty of hands in my day. Never gotten a bruise. Never gotten bruises so bad I glop makeup slop onto them and it's continuous for days on end. There was a congresswoman who in fact talked about how she suspects Donald Trump might actually be taking a dementia medication in his hand, and that's the reason for the bruising and the swelling and of course the cognitive decline. But all of that is about to be revealed because one of Donald Trump's lawsuits is coming back to bite him, and Carolyn Levitt as well. Trump may be forced to fork over tax returns and medical records in Pulitzer lawsuit. Donald Trump could be forced to give up his tax returns and medical records in a Pulitzer defamation lawsuit over the Russia investigation reporting awards, according to a report Monday. Pulitzer Prize board members filed court documents in Florida after December 11th. Trump now has 30 days from that date to respond to claims and document requests, Law and Crime reported. Defendants, who include 20 different people from multiple media organizations, have demanded all of Donald Trump's tax returns from all jurisdictions, including all attachments, schedules, and worksheets from 2015 to most recent, documents pointing to sufficient to show all sources of your income, in addition to documents from the same time frame that are sufficient to show all of your financial holdings. They are also requesting his listed liabilities plus his health records and prescription medication history. So Donald Trump had lost his mind that reporting, factual reporting, mind you, factual investigative reporting, revealed his connection with Vladimir Putin and, of course, Russian interference in our elections. And so he sued. And that lawsuit, thank God, has backfired on Donald Trump, with the defendants asking, well, if you're wanting information from us, how about we get a little bit from you? Now, those tax documents are going to piss him off, but certainly the ask for that medical history will as well. Donald Trump is going to be furious because we know exactly what he is hiding. We know exactly what Donald Trump doesn't want us to see because we see it every day. It is his brain leaking out of his head. It is his stumbling and his slurring. It is his physical deterioration. And it is very much contrasted with the young governor who I spoke with, Andy Beshear, who has been one of the best in calling out Donald Trump, calling out Republicans, and making sure Democrats do something that we rarely do, which is stand in our victories. You're really going to enjoy this interview. Take a look right here. In our party, so often we elevate the Republican cheerleading us when we do something, or we see, job growth or crackdown on crime. And so it's, oh, look how Republicans are praising us on this. And I just don't know why we do it. But that's not your approach. Can you talk more about how you make sure that Democratic wins are promoted as Democratic wins?
The way I start governing is that the things that people care about the most are things like a good job, are things like being able to afford your next doctor's visit, things like the roads and bridges you drive, the school your kids go to, and whether you feel safe in your community. And those aren't Democrat or Republican issues. And so when you are the official in charge, when you're the one pushing the policy, you got to make sure that people know who got it through, that they know how the work was done. And so when we were able to raise pay for our Kentucky State Police and make sure we had more state troopers out there, we made sure that they knew that we made that happen. When we had the best 3 years of economic development with the highest 3-year average for wages, we made sure that happened. When we built a new road that could save people 20 minutes each way, where you could have more time with your family, we sent a postcard to everybody who lived within a certain distance from it so that they would know, again, who did it. We've got to make sure that as Democrats we're seen as focusing on those core concerns of the American people, because you may care a ton about a certain issue, but if you can't pay your bills at the end of the month, that's the thing driving you.
And it's not just about the wins as well, it's about who's convincing people. Like something that's been sticking in my mind, we see a lot on both tariffs and immigration, kind of these videos of Ronald Reagan. And it's always, well, listen to what Reagan said about this. But in my mind, I'm kind of saying like, well, Democrats are saying this, and we're making the same case. Why are we kind of leaning on the Republican of the past, or maybe someone who decided that they didn't want to be a part of a Republican Party under Trump anymore? What are your thoughts on kind of, obviously you're coming from a much different state and an electorate than anyone else, but what is your thought on that?
I think what it's an attempt to do is to show Donald Trump's extremism, because people aren't comfortable with extremism. Yes, we needed to secure the borders, and we can admit that as Democrats, but what ICE is doing right now, pulling up in neighborhoods, jumping out in body armor and masks, throwing people to the ground, throwing them in the back of the car, and they're in another state in a couple hours, and only then are they asked the required questions. That's too extreme for people. What we see out of, what are they calling it, alligator Alcatraz, and the cages, that's not right.
They're selling merch.
We don't put human beings in that,
Yeah.
and that's too extreme for people. The American people aren't as political as we think, and when we see policies like the Trump administration, they rightfully make people uncomfortable because they don't think their neighbor is the enemy from within. They think they're their neighbor.
Yeah, and you've talked about the story of vetoing some of the worst bills to come out of the state legislature, and having respect from constituents who maybe aren't in line with you on everything. Something that has also been sticking in my mind since the government shutdown was how Donald Trump weaponized SNAP. Right? We saw a lot online.
How cruel.
This effort by the conservatives to say, like, oh, if you're on SNAP, like, you should feel ashamed, or you shouldn't be able to get, cookies for your kid's birthday. Or the worst tweet I saw was advocating that all SNAP recipients should just get Nutriloaf, which is like a prison torture food. It is insane to me that I felt like we didn't give that enough pushback.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of folks that are posting those things that when they took office put their hand on a Bible. And in that Bible, you've got things like the miracle of the fishes and the loaves in every book of the gospel. You have the Last Supper. It's so central, feeding people, at least to my faith. And the idea that you would use starving seniors or starving kids as political leverage is wrong. And you know what? Every other president's agreed, because this is the first president in history that refused to fully fund SNAP during the shutdown. But it was worse than that. So I sued him. We went to court along with the other AGs. We got a ruling saying you've at least got to pay partial benefits. So we got those out. Another group got a ruling saying you got to pay full benefits. He went to the Supreme Court just so that he wouldn't have to feed people, even when he had the legal grounds to do so.
Is the thing that he spent the most time on, it seemed, working to block benefits. I want to close on someone else. You always are speaking about your faith, but someone else who's kind of doing it on the opposite ends to maybe certainly accomplish different goals. J.D. Vance. How do you feel about the way that he, I don't want to use the term weaponizes, but I kind of do, and misinterprets his faith as a way to excuse what he's doing?
Yeah.
How does that sit with you?
You know your faith's been hijacked when suddenly your God hates all the same people that you do.
Yeah.
That's not what faith is about. If you are a person of faith, you don't talk down to people the way that J.D. Vance does. You don't attack people. What you try to do is unconditionally love them. I mean, the idea of the golden rule of loving your neighbor as yourself is paired with the parable of the Good Samaritan that says everyone is your neighbor. What most people don't know is that parable isn't a story, it's an instruction. Because at the end of it, Jesus looks at the crowd and says, go and do likewise. In other words, we have this great example of how we're supposed to treat each other, and the idea that you would use faith to divide people would suggest that there was an asterisk on that golden rule, and there's simply an in one.
And of course, speaking of leadership, big announcement,
Yes.
and I appreciate you continuing to lead us all across the country.
Thank you
Governors
very
as well.
much.
Thank you so much for the time.